My name is Janina Kugel, and I have been holding several HR positions in my life. In my last position, I was the CHRO for Siemens, and before the CHRO for Osram, and obviously, when I was younger, different HR positions. Very often, companies do a company strategy, a business strategy, and then they try to add a people strategy. But you have to think it together, because every company and every organization is working with people. So whatever you do, whatever product you develop, if it's a service or if it's a technology, there's always people behind that actually make the innovations, that lead the processes. So what you need to do in the first-hand side, when you develop your business strategy, to also think the people strategy right with it. So for example, if you say, we want to grow in a certain market, then you need to understand, first of all, what's the market potential, what's the market growth, etc. But then the next thing that you need to think in parallel is, do we have the right people? Could we find the right people on that market? What are the skills that are needed? Or do we need to build the skills internally? And only if you then have an answer, which means, yes, we can make that, right? Either you have the people internally, or you know that you can hire them on the market, you have the right skills. Is that then a full business strategy? So obviously this is a little bit like a short story, right? But like to get a little bit complexity out, this is what you need to do. And that means that it's not about developing a business strategy and then handing it over to HR and say, please see how you can figure out what to do with it. But you have to bring everyone together at one table. So the entire C-level needs to sit there and needs to discuss it together. You need to make analysis. What are the skills that you're having? What are the competencies that you're having in your organization? Who are the people that you're having in your organization? So pretty much like to captivate the human capital that you're having. And then, of course, like deriving whether you need more or less people and how you actually want to facilitate that. And this initiative needs to be driven from the entire executive management team, strategic workforce planning, to give you one advice. And then obviously from there on, everyone results what they need to do. The sales people, the technology people, and the HR people to understand what really matters. I know that many companies still think in parallel, but you were asking me what is the biggest success, right? And the most successful approach would be to do everything together. It means two things. It means that business managers need to think in a way that everything that they do with their business unit or whatever the organization is called that they're leading is also including the people strategy. So the respective HR business partners who should know or should know the organization best need to be totally internally integrated also in all of the strategic discussions on the business. And so therefore, there is an action partner that you have in HR that can really drive all of the current data that is going on and all of the discussions, knowing the people, and also can make the judgment. And then you need to have resources in HR and obviously also like a thinking that HR is not about serving the business. It's not about running the administration. That is also one of the parts, but it's also like really having strategic thinking on how to develop the people strategy. So with the data that you have accumulated and with the know-how that you have accumulated over the years, you need to then bring everything together and make the judgments. And you need to have a team in HR that knows also what is happening in the next level. So what are the priorities of talent in the market? What is happening in the market worldwide, when it comes to, because different people around the globe have different aspirations. So what do we need to do as a company to be an attractive employer? How can we retain people? What do we need to invest to develop them? What is the training requirements that we are having in the organizations? That are all strategic thinking. I just mentioned a few. That is all strategic thinking that needs to be part in HR. So twofold. Business needs to fully integrate the HR business partners. And secondly, HR needs to get out of that thinking that they execute the decisions of the business, but they need to understand that they are an integral part of the strategy and need to take over all of the different aspects that you need to derive a people strategy for the entire organization. And traditionally, in many organizations, that has been a little bit more separated. Decisions were made, HR was executing, and not actually, by the way, not only HR, right? You have the same, for example, then communication was executing instead of really thinking it together. But controlling is not the right approach to have an engaged workforce per se. If the only thing is that you do is like you measure when they come into the office and when they leave, you have measured the time that they are present, but you haven't measured the outcome. But what is more important? And I always say, if there is a task that people are working on, and I believe they need to make it in 8 hours, and if someone can make it in 6 hours, I mean, even better, right? And so this is the part that I would like to challenge everyone that sees people management in that, let me call it rather in the old-fashioned way. If you want to have an engaged workforce, if you want to have innovations, if you want to be an attractive employer, if you want to be competitive, successful in the world's market, you need to create a workspace where people like to go and where your employees want to work. And you need to figure out how you can develop them. And feedback is a very essential part, and doing everything possible to engage them. And controlling is the least part of it. Now, I'm living in Germany, and I know that Japan and Germany have also some similarities when it comes to the demographic challenges, right? I mean, you know, like how many children are born in a country and how aging is the entire population. If you take all of those aspects, which is part, by the way, of what we discussed in the beginning, the people strategy, workforce planning, then you need to understand, you need to have the skills of the people that are living in your country or living in those countries that you are actually delivering, you know, with your organization, and you need to make them happy and to attract them. Otherwise, they will go somewhere else. And so I think this is a really essential part. I think definitely it is the CEO and the CHRO, you know, that need to set the strategy. But then you have a C-level team because every one of them is making a contribution, bringing it to the table. And I'm a big believer in the diversity of thinking and the diversity of different perspectives. You need to bring that all together. So let's make an example. If the CEO and CHRO then believe that they want to invest in something and that they want to launch a people strategy, then the CFO says, well, I would love to do it, but we cannot afford it. Then, of course, you don't have a strategy either. So you have to bring them together. But here comes the very important thing, and I'm repeating myself, but you cannot develop a strategy without thinking people along with it. And I have seen plenty of cases when, let me take a very easy example, when people said, okay, let's build a new manufacturing plant in another country or in a different area. If you only look at it, whether you have the logistics, whether you can build a plant, and if you forget that then later on, you don't find the right people with the right skills there, you cannot run the factory. So, you know, just like very pragmatic examples to get there. And I would say, what is the human, if you start to do that, what is the human resources agenda that you are having in your organization? How can you really bring that together? What are the talents that you're having, and what is the talent that you want to access? And how do you measure the bridge between like what as is today and what is the aspiration of what you want to build? And that needs to become part of the corporate culture. You know, sometimes they miss innovations, but very often they didn't really have a culture where the people that maybe saw certain things happening, they saw that, you know, there were not the competitive edge anymore, that there was like different technologies coming up, that there were different opportunities in different markets. If you then don't have a culture where these people speak up and they bring their ideas in a way that you see what is happening, and at the C-level, you can also take the actions, then this is usually the time when you're losing out on other things. Yeah. So I think it's always a circle what you need to revisit, and you need to learn also from your own mistakes to make it better the next time.